Yes. So now we'll see in practical how we can deal with props, or how you can pass props across the components from parent component to child component, and we'll understand how to access the props in different styles. So first we will look in the form of class-based components, and the same thing we'll convert the class components into functional components so that you will understand in both the scenarios, right? So what I'll be trying to do is I'll be defining a main component. Okay, main component which extends react dot component, and the purpose of this main component is to render two lists. Okay, so one is ordered list and the other is unordered list. Okay, so what it is, return, or first in the main component you will have the render function, and inside render you will return some HTML, right? So what it is returning. Okay, so let's say constructor, you have some data, this dot names. Okay, so I have few names, Iron Man, Spider-Man, Captain America, and I have Hulk, then I have Thor, all the superheroes. Okay, and Wanda and Vision. Okay, so I have 6 elements, right? So again, so whenever you are using this in the constructor, it is always recommended to call the super function, which indeed initializes the component which we are extending, that is react dot component. Okay, so now we are going to pass data between the components, and we'll see how it is being accessed. Okay, so we'll have two lists. One is ordered list. Okay, extends react dot component. Okay, and the other is unordered list. Okay, so what we are trying to do is we are having a main component which is the actual source of data, right? And from this main component I'll split the data. All the even elements will be displayed as ordered list, and all the odd elements will be displayed as unordered list. Okay, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? So it means on the whole we have 7 elements, which means we have 0, 2, 4, 6, 4 even elements and 3 odd elements. So basically what I'm trying to showcase is, based on some logic in the parent component, I'll pass the data to the child elements. So basically parent component is determining what the child should render. Okay, so maybe parent component is just fetching this data from the backend or from reading a file, whatever it is. Okay, so what it does is it has two components, ordered list and unordered list, right? So again, if you cannot return two elements from a React component, so always wrap it inside the div, or you always return the single element. Okay, so now you need to define this ordered and unordered list. So what these are going to do, right? So these are going to do nothing. What they'll do is, this is an ordered list, so it is UL. Okay, so and this is unordered list, right? So return OL. So it's the other way around, OL and UL. Right? So ordered list what it does, it just loops over the data which has been passed to it. So what is the data passed to it? Names. So how do I do that? This dot names dot map. Okay, so I'm mapping over the element and I'm returning the list component, right? And again, I'm accessing JavaScript inside HTML, so I'll wrap it inside the curly braces. Similarly, the unordered list, right? So ordered and unordered list. But what are these dot names? It doesn't really have any these dot names, right? So basically, it receives some data from its parent component that is called as props. Okay, this dot props dot names. So it is expecting some data from its parent. Okay, and how do I send that data to its child? So you pass it as an attribute to a HTML element. So whenever you want to pass, so what are attributes in HTML? Attributes are anything which gives some additional information to the HTML element, right? So here the React component, to this React component, we want to pass some data. How we can do that? By sending props. And how do you send the props? In this fashion. So here you will split the data. Okay, so you will split the data and you can directly write the JavaScript code here itself. This dot names dot filter, right? This I'm filtering the array. This dot names dot filter, and what is the condition? Element percentage 2 is equal to 0, right? So what this array is going to do? This array is going to filter these names, and on what condition? If not the element, we need to check the condition on the index. So if index percentage 2, I mean if the index is an even, then pass it to ordered list, and if the index is an odd, then pass it to the unordered list. Okay, so basically I'll have this dot names dot filter, right? So now whatever data I'm passing over here is now accessible in the child elements. So this dot percentage 2 is equal to 1, right? Now I'll export this component, export default main component, and I'll start the server. So it is already started. Yeah. So cool. So I got the elements. Of the even in the ordered list, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, and rest all elements in the unordered fashion. So what happened here, right? So I passed some data from here, from the parent component to the child component, like an HTML attribute. Okay, so if you are getting confused by this, we can split the array over here itself. This dot even names. Okay, and you can simply put all of this logic over here, and this dot odd names, right? And all of this logic can be placed here, and now simply pass this dot even names and this dot odd names. So now what happened is, with whatever key, so props are nothing but key value pairs. So this is the key and this is the value. So you are trying to render a JavaScript variable inside the HTML, hence you've wrapped it inside the flower brackets, and whatever this dot even names gets evaluated to. So it is filtering the main names array and getting all the even names, and in the unordered list also it is filtering all the odd names and passing both of these. So now what I have done is I have passed a prop called as names to my children component, and how can I access it inside my child? Using the this.props.mams. So whatever key with which you have passed over here, same key should be accessed over here. So if I say this.names instead of this, if I say superheroes, So how do I access in the ordered list? I would access it the same name. So whatever key you are passing, that value is accessed in the this.props. So if I just console.log all the this.props, so what exactly is this.props, right? We'll see. So yeah, so see, this.props is the props which are passed from the parent object. So if you just add an identifier to show that this console is here, yes. So see, whatever elements which we have passed, superheroes, so it is one of the keys in the props. So I can pass any number of data in the same way. So if I want to pass multiple props, then I would say name is equal, owner equal to Vasudev, right? And company equal to Stark Industries, right? So now when you refresh, you will see all of those being passed to the child component. And where am I accessing this props? Inside the child component. So see here, console.log this.props. So this is how you pass data between parent component and child component, and this is the easiest interaction between parent and child. Okay, so there are a lot of other interactions, how to interact from child to parent and child to child, so from ordered list to unordered list. All that we will be understanding slowly on when we understand how to deal with state and everything. Okay, so ordered list and unordered list are now receiving the props from the parent component. Okay, now let's convert the same thing into functional component. How do you access props in the functional component? Okay, so first I'll convert the main component into functional. Okay, so let me do that. How do you convert a class component into functional component? Function. So as long as there is no state associated with any component, you can use function or class, but only when you are defining state, which you are going to do, then only you will need class component explicitly. Okay, function main component v2. Okay, I'm naming it as v2, and technically you can do it with arrow functions also. So let's stay with arrow functions. Main component v2 equal to arrow function, right? And then I have to, whatever we are returning from the render function, you simply return that from here. Okay, and instead of this dot, you don't need this in a functional component, so you directly name the variables as constant. So with the identifiers constant or let, whatever is in your use, right? And you will directly access them. That's it. So I converted a class component into functional component. Okay, and what did I do? First, I copied whatever the render function is returning, and I simply returned that values, and whatever the data I have stored in the constructor or initialized in the constructor, now I am initializing at the start of the function call. Okay, so I will rename this as v1 and I'll rename it to main component. Okay, and now instead of exporting this, I'll export default this. So when you're export defaulting a function, you can do like this at the bottom. You can do at the bottom, or you can do while you are defining the component itself. So similar fashion, we will convert these two components as well into the functional components. Constant ordered list v2 okay, is equal to, so again you can use let identifier or const identifier, totally up to you. And now how do we convert from class to function? You just copy the return statement. So basically whatever render function is returning, you return it from the main function. And how do you get the props? So always remember, props are injected to the function components by the ReactJS itself. So when you just append the props to the component, when you are rendering it, React is the one who is taking care, collecting all of this data and passing with the name of props. So in functional components, you will get it as the first argument. You will get it as an argument and directly you can use it in this fashion. Similarly, we'll convert the unordered list as well, right? And the same, instead of in the unordered list, it is this dot props dot names. So props dot names. That's it. Now I will rename it to v1 and I'll rename it to v1. This again back to the normal so that everything works fine, right? So now whatever we are rendering, it is directly through the functional component. So first we have seen the class component version of how to use the props, and now we are seeing how we can use props. So every component by default receives the first argument, by default receives the argument props. And who is injecting that props? React is the guy. React, the library React is doing that for you. Okay. Now props.names, and similarly I'll console.log for you. What are we receiving in the props? Okay. It will be one and the same. Okay. It is getting an error. Don't worry. We'll understand what is the error. Okay. Cannot read properties of undefined. Yes. So here comes the lesson we learned, that is nullish operator. So when you are trying to access the props, it is always good you do this. Put the nullish operator so it checks, right? So it checks, and the spelling over here is wrong, names. So what this nullish operator does basically is it checks if the element is null, then it ignores instead of throwing the error, and if it is not null, then it performs the normal logic operation. So it is now again the same. So superhero, and you received all the properties which you received as in the class component. So both class component and functional component, props, the way you handle props are totally the same. Okay. And now we will try to understand what is state. Okay.